you will finally be able to take a deep breath. Many of you very likely will find yourself needing to go forward from this episode doing less. You will see that healing needs to happen in a specific order, and you can finally find that master key to unlock and just really accentuate incredible, natural, drug-free healing results for your kiddo.
Welcome to the Experience Miracles podcast, where we help parents find hope, answers, and drug-free help to overcome your child's chronic health challenges. I'm your host, Dr. Tony Ebel, and I'll be sharing my experiences as both a dad and a doctor on every episode. I can take the latest science and neurology of healing and break it down in the most simple and relatable way possible. We'll take on the toughest topics and answer your biggest questions through interviews with other amazing parents and leading experts, leaving you with practical action steps that you can take to help your child heal and thrive. It's time to expect and experience miracles. Let's get started.
There is absolutely nothing worse than watching your child struggle with their health. Even acute short-term issues like a cold, sinus congestion, or a cough can stress the heck out of us parents. So that means when our kids' health issues turn into chronic, lifelong challenges, instead of growing out of it like the pediatrician told us they would, they grow into things like autism, ADHD, anxiety, epilepsy, allergies, asthma, POTS, PANDAS, and so forth. When that happens, our worry, our stress, our anxiety goes up 100-fold. But sadly, I'm not even done painting the picture of frustration and exhaustion with parents today. Right now, there is a whole new layer and cause of frustration that is almost 100% of parents that come into our practice report to me that honestly goes a couple layers even deeper. And that is the feeling that they've already tried everything out there, traditional and natural, to help their child heal, and nothing is working. Again and again, day after day, I meet parents who have not only exhausted the traditional, conventional medical system, gone through the pediatrician, the neurologist, the immunologist, and every medical specialist they were referred to, but now they've gone through all the list of natural health, diet changes, detoxes, vitamins, supplements, essential oils, tongue-tie revisions, primitive reflex, neurointegrative therapies, functional medicine, biomedical interventions, and on the list goes. They truly, literally feel like they've done it all and nothing is working. Or at the very least, sometimes some symptoms are better and life is a little bit easier, but they still have not reached their goals of optimal results and full recovery for their child's chronic health issues. This is where the frustration mounts and moms and dads really get exhausted, as each new doctor, provider, specialist, therapy, and so forth can be so promising when you first hear about it online or from a friend, and when you first get started. But then so often something just falls short and the results are not there. In this solo deep dive episode, I will break down for you the exact missing piece and tell you what it is for so many of these cases, and will surprise you with, honestly, how simple and almost hidden in plain sight it truly is. You'll be blown away by how everything can change for the better for so many kids and cases if we just do the following two things. First, focus on what we call the healing hierarchy, or the batting order, I'm a baseball player, that is absolutely essential to getting results for kids with chronic neurological conditions. And second, how to do less, not more. So often what I find is that parents are absolutely doing all the right things, but not necessarily in the right order or sequence. And how the heck would they know what that sequence and what that batting order is? When our kids are struggling with their health, we do everything we can and then some, all at once, to help them. And what feels right is to throw the book at it, and every single doctor, therapy, treatment, and care program out there that we can do, we can find, we can afford, we're doing it. But the problem with this is we first need to understand that chronic illness and disease develops in a very specific order. And in the same way, optimal health and neurological development has a specific sequence or batting order to it as well, which is known as the developmental milestones, or what we call the neurological health and developmental hierarchy. Don't worry, we'll take those nerdy words, as always, and make them simpler and easy to understand. But as we get further into this episode, we'll break down this sequence and hierarchy into granular detail, and we'll go way beyond what the conventional pediatrician or even the medical neurologist understands about neurodevelopment and neurological healing and restoration from chronic disease. So parents, please know this. If this conversation goes way beyond what even conventional medical doctors understand, and even beyond what maybe your holistic natural doctors have talked about before, it is absolutely not something you should have or could have known on your own. As parents, this stuff is exhausting, this stuff is confusing, and this stuff is complex because not only do we not have training in healthcare, but it's just so stressful that we don't know where to turn, what to do first, and in what order. All right, what about this do less, not more principle of neurological healing and helping kids get through chronic disease? Well, first, it's important to understand that sequence, but now when we look at it, it's really quite simple to say, hey, if my child's nervous system, digestive system, immune system, endocrine system, motor system, behavior, emotions, cognition, speech are all struggling, dysregulated, and not functioning at the same time, we can't expect to fix or help heal them all at the same time. So often, what actually occurs is each individual treatment or care program is probably a very good thing that has the potential to help. But when it's all put in play at the same time, it can actually overwhelm and overload an already overloaded, overwhelmed, overstressed, and dysregulated nervous system and almost cancel out the results of each individual thing. This is where parents rightfully, understandably get extra exhausted. When we talk about the concepts that are the main focus of this podcast, known as the perfect storm, and we break down and discuss the real root cause of chronic illness in kids, parents often say to me, man, why did no one tell me that before? I knew things were going on. I knew things were off track early on, but my doctor didn't say anything. Well, now we hear that statement again applied to this particular conversation. Once we explain the importance of the healing hierarchy and do less, not more to parents and even other providers, they often say, oh man, that makes so much sense. How the heck did no one teach me that before? So let's do this. Let's get you the full explanation of how important this conversation on this episode is and reveal to you the missing first step and the essential sequence to getting real results for your kiddo. And you can finally find that master key to unlock and just really accentuate incredible, natural, drug-free healing results for your kiddo. There is a multitude of things that help kids get better. There is a multifactorial cause to things like autism, ADHD, and chronic illness. So it is absolutely the right move to throw multiple things at it to get your child better. But the most important move is the conversation of this deep dive episode. You've got to do things in the right order, and we've got to get the body and we've got to get the brain healing in the right sequence. You're going to hear me say that word, sequence, batting order, so many times in this podcast episode. And I promise you, when you see the forest through the trees here with this explanation that no one else is having, you will finally be able to take a deep breath. You will have your hope, your excitement, your confidence restored in getting your kiddo healthy again. Because honestly, all of this is just flat out science. This is just neurology. This is just physiology. This is just anatomy. This is just how God designed our kids to be healthy and develop healthy in the first place. And so we've got to follow that same design, that same sequence to get our kiddos healing and restoring as well. To get results, it is essential that we have this conversation about what matters most first, then what's next, and what sequence and what batting order to put all this in. Now, the one place that I can tell you I do not have expertise, I'm not even in the stratosphere of functional, is fixing things on the farm I live on. Now, if you've listened to any podcast episodes here with the Experience Miracles podcast, you know that yes, I am a pediatric chiropractor, neurologically focused neuroscience expert, neuroplasticity, brain development. I can get after it. That is my area of expertise for sure. I'm also a dad, so dad jokes and long rambling, ranting, seemingly important but maybe not stories, also my absolute specialty. Okay, I own that lane right there. But you would think as a farm kid growing up as my dad's right-hand man, my number one, mentor and impact maker in my life, Steve Ebel, just being with him all day, every day. Remember, we didn't have phones, we didn't have iPads, and we didn't have cable at home. So I was outside every day helping my dad. So you would think, right? This guy's functional. This guy can fix stuff. This guy can build stuff. That's not true. I cannot even, and I'm all about alignment because I'm a chiropractor, I can't even hang a freaking poster frame or a picture frame. And I have a beautiful wife, very creative, loves design, and then 3 daughters. So Hobby Lobby, it's a big thing in our life. You want to see, we talk about nervous system stress here on this podcast all the time as well. You want to see my nervous system get more stressed, more sympathetic dominant, more in a fear state than ever before, drive me towards Hobby Lobby, okay? That is the bane of my existence inside that store. Just getting $1.99 designed to death there as we buy all these little things. And then someone has to hang them on the wall. Someone has to make them look cute. That when you go to Hobby Lobby, the word cute is just overused. As much as I say nervous system stress, people inside Hobby Lobby and home goods and these things, they say the word cute a lot to succulents and throw pillows. So where the heck am I going with this nice little storytelling intersection before we get into the meat of this episode and break down all this science? When you go to fix a farmhouse, when you go to restore a barn, when you go to restore a classic car, or just fix something that isn't working, you can't just cover it up with a Band-Aid. You can't just put paint over top of it and make it look good on the outside, but not fix the foundation and what's really going on the inside. And I know how these home restoration or home build projects work. Again, can't do them, totally useless. I can carry heavy objects towards and to the people who do the important work. I'm a grunt, that's what I do. But the truth of the matter is, you have to not only start in a specific place, the foundation, and getting that taken care of first. But then you need to restore, rebuild in the right sequence. There's a science to it. There's a sequence to it. And so a lot of you out there are very well aware of that in different areas of life to rebuild, restore these things. You got to go in a certain order. You guys, getting our kids healthy is exactly the same. That's the best analogy I can give you, because what traditional medicine tries to do is just cover it up and make it look good on the outside, right? That's symptomatic alleviation. That is the business of medicine. A child can have all sorts of nervous system dysregulation and dysfunction on the inside that spits out on the outside. Hyperactivity, impulsivity, inability to focus. Boom, fill out a survey, go to a doctor, a psychiatrist, a neurologist, a pediatrician. There's no exam, there's no test, there's no way to say, hey, your child has ADHD. Here's the neuroscience behind it. They just take these symptoms and they put medications on top. And if the medications make the symptoms better, so just the expression, the outside, not the inside, they're actually going to make the inside worse. That's what medications do. They're riddled with side effects, short-term inside and long-term. Now medicine goes, hey, look, that kid's better. But we all know, no, they're not. What actually got better? What actually got fixed? What actually got healed? What actually got restored? Nothing. And could they actually be worse? And the truth is yes. Now, it's easy. Hear me on this one, parents. Hear me on this granular part of this episode. It's easy for us today to understand that medications and conventional medicine is in the business of covering things up instead of actually restoring and rebuilding health from the inside out. But what about what I call the middleman? What about natural health, holistic health, biomedical, functional, integrative? Now, what's so awesome is our natural health, and we've interviewed, and we will continue to interview many of these rock stars here on this podcast because they work hand in hand. This is a 1 + 1 = 11 effect we're about to talk about. So many of these things that help us restore gut health and the microbiome. So many things that help us combat inflammation within the body. So many things like PT and OT and speech that help the muscular, motor, movement system try and recalibrate, reorganize, and get better. They are all so freaking good, and they are so barking up the right, it's always funny to say this analogy because it actually goes down as you get to the trunk and into the roots. And that's a better analogy if we're going to use the tree, which I often do on this podcast. They're getting to the trunk of the tree. So the symptoms are expressed, and medicine doesn't even bother to get to the trunk, let alone the roots. But what we need to do to get your child all the way better is we actually do need to go to the roots. We need to go all the way into the central and autonomic nervous system, and we need to start there because the gut is controlled by the nervous system. The microbiome, the immune system, the endocrine system is controlled by the central nervous system and what's called the autonomic nervous system. When we say nervous system, we mean those two things put together. The motor system, your child's spasticity, your child's stimming, your child's toe walking, their weak core, their incoordination and gait challenges, their sensory processing challenges, those are all rooted in neurology first. The tone of the nervous system controls the tone, the coordination, and the organization of the muscular system. So again, we can't get any of these other systems. We're about to break those down one by one here in this episode, and then then tie them back to the foundation of how we help them. Get the nervous system better first, and then the gut gets better. Get the nervous system better first, and then the immune system gets better. Get the nervous system better first, and then the endocrine or the motor system or our speech or our socialization or emotional and behavioral regulation gets better next. There is a foundation, there is a sequence, and that is the conversation here on this episode, and it is not had anywhere else. A lot of natural integrative functional doctors are so amazing at helping restore the gut and rebuild things there. They're so amazing at helping get rid of toxins and things that are coming in and will wreak havoc on an already stressed system. But who's going to help you go all the way back, or maybe better said, all the way down to the real roots of where your child's storm and chronic illness were first triggered? See, that's the conversation here in this podcast episode. In order to understand what needs to be done first and in what specific sequence of healing, you have to go back and understand what was developed, what needed to be turned on and optimized first, and start there. And it isn't the gut, and it isn't the motor system, and it isn't our inflammation, and it isn't cytokines, and it isn't the microbiome, and it isn't our brain-based stuff. It isn't our decision-making and our prefrontal cortex. Really, those things are all tethered together. And I could go way down the list of anatomy, physiology, organs, system, cells, and we could say they're all controlled and regulated by the nervous system. And so this conversation is going to take us back to the same place again and again throughout this episode. And I want to say it intentionally a few times over because no one else out there is talking about this. But again, like I said there in the introduction, when I talk to parents and I explain the perfect storm, hey, it was these stressors way earlier than anybody told you that are very important and threw your child's nervous system off track. And then it grow out of colic and constipation and chronic ear infections and motor delays and sensory challenges and meltdowns. They grew into autism, ADHD, and anxiety. That conversation always elicits that response. My goodness, that makes so much sense. Why didn't anybody tell me this and help me with this before? But this sequence, this batting order conversation, I think it is now the most important conversation because we all live the same life when we try and help our kiddos get better through natural, drug-free, non-medical stuff. We go to those Facebook groups, we go online, we go to Instagram, we go to TikTok, we go to podcasts, we go to Facebook. By the way, we're on all those places. Okay, not TikTok yet because I'm, 42, working on it. But the truth is, we go there and we raise our hand and we ask for help and we say, help my child with epilepsy. Help my child with autism. I don't want medications. I want to do this naturally. What do you suggest I do? And within 3 minutes, awesomely, rightfully, those Facebook groups go off. And now, moms and dads, you've lived this life. You're half smiling. Right now, you're hearing me say this, and you're smiling with relatability, and you're smiling, a crooked smile on the other side with frustration because of the relatability. And you check back to your post 3 minutes, 30 minutes, 3 hours later, and you've got 373 different things that you're supposed to do to get your kiddo better. You got to go keto, you got to go paleo, you got to go macro, you got to detox, you got to get rid of parasites, you got to get rid of heavy metals, you got to get them into this therapy, you got to get them to this doctor, you got to get them to this thing. And it's exhausting. And even if everything on that list in that group is right, even if your child would and could benefit from each of those things, do we think it's going to work if we do them all at the same time? Now, I phrase it in that way because I didn't know either. See, the truth is I got into this work of helping kids with autism and epilepsy and chronic illness before my son struggled with his birth trauma and his seizures and his NICU stay and all those things. And when I got into this work, I took the exact same path that parents do. Every class I took, every seminar I took, every certification that I took added more that I was supposed to do to get kids with chronic illness better. So what I did 15 or so years ago is I built a clinic that had everything under one roof. Now, hang with me, moms and dads. This is one of the most important podcasts you'll ever listen to. So please share this as well with people in those Facebook groups and elsewhere, because this is, again, I've said it a few times, this is not a conversation anyone else is having, and it is freaking essential. And I know because of my practice experience, because what I did is I took the same path that parents take as a provider, and I learned this, so I did this, and I learned that, so I did that, and I got certified in that, so I added that. And within 3 to 5 years, I woke up and my clinic had literally everything under one roof. We were a functional neurologist, biomedical, integrative, office before it was cool, before Instagram was even a freaking thing, all right? And the more I did, the less our results were, how do I say this without bad English? I'm just going to say it with my Iowa farmer English. The more we did, the less good we did, okay? The less better the results were. The truth is, each thing individually that I learned as a practitioner at these seminars and at these certification programs, they are good things individually. But nobody taught me. Providers teaching other providers. This is why providers don't know this either and don't do this, because if you don't know it, you can't do it. Nobody taught me that there is a specific order. There's a specific hierarchy through which healing needs to happen, and it needs to mirror the hierarchy that development and health building was supposed to happen in the first place. It's actually not that complex once we get into it, but it's super complex because as parents and as providers who have a big heart to help, we're just in it. We're literally in the storm. We're in the thick of it. And so what feels right is to do everything as fast as possible all at once. But what you're going to see by the end of this episode, I'm going to go an hour or so because this is a very important one that I want to break down the constructs and the concepts very specifically, very scientifically, but also very simply for you. Once you see the forest through the trees with this conversation, you will see that healing needs to happen in a specific order. And so often when you really see it, we'll come back to that second thing we introduced, which you might find yourself, many of you very likely will find yourself needing to go forward from this episode doing less currently, at least in the short term, not more, in order to first spark and start healing in the right place for your child. Get what's called momentum. And once you have momentum and we can get your child's nervous system to be restored and better regulated, and then get to a place what we call neurological stability, which means they do finally have some adaptability, some resiliency again. Now, different therapies, now different supplements, now different things can work so much better. Every single day in my practice, I talk to parents who are doing PT, OT, speech therapy, and have been for years and are entirely plateaued. They've been stuck and seen little to no progress for a long time. Does that mean PT, OT, and speech aren't awesome and don't work and don't get incredible results? No. What it means is that child's nervous system is so stuck, so stressed, so off track, so what's called subluxated, sympathetic dominant, and exhausted or dysregulated that it's not responsive. And parents, you know this. You're watching this. You're living this. They do not respond to therapy. It's good, but it ain't working for your child. What's underneath that? That's what we're answering here. What about children who go out and get all the OAT tests and all the biomedical tests, and they find out, wow, your child is loaded with heavy metals. Your child is loaded with too many of these toxins, and then they're too depleted on the good things. And so functional integrative medicine says, bam, here's your detox kits, here's your parasite cleanses, here's these things to get the bad stuff out, here's your supplements, here's your vitamins, here's your restorative products to get the good stuff in, and you do it. And then 6 months or a year later, you rerun the tests, and you're doing everything, literally to the T. You've made your life extremely limited, extremely constricted with what they can have, what they can. Oh, the list of food intolerances and allergies is a mile long. The list of supplements you got to get them to choke down and take is a mile long. It costs you $1,500 a month. It's wildly expensive, but it's awesome. It makes sense. There's blood work that shows the toxins, the metals, and then the depletions and the deficiencies. So it's very cut and dry science, right? So you do it. You follow through. You execute to the T on it, and you redo the blood work 6 months, 12 months later, and there's still toxins. There's still heavy metals, and there's still deficiencies. You're doing everything right, but it won't work in full. Hopefully it's better, but it's not gone. So what gives? What's underneath of that? The nervous system being stressed, the nervous system being off track. I could go on down the list of things you've likely tried in the past or are doing right now, and hopefully they're doing some good. Hopefully they're doing a lot of good, but maybe you're still not all the way there. So I can't say it enough. This is the conversation that will change your life. And I need to spend an hour to have it because no one else is having it. And there is intricate, detailed neuroscience underneath of it. But in the same breath, once we get to the end of it, it's really simple. It's really straightforward. And it's really neurological. And when we start there and we get that system to heal and balance and regulate and get online first, guess what happens? Everything else works better. Every other awesome thing in that Facebook group, from that natural health doctor, from the other families you know that have helped heal their kiddos, and they did it, but it didn't work for your kiddo, this will now help those things work. What's so exciting about this conversation is we're at the end of it going to be talking about one thing: neurologically focused chiropractic care, and getting the central nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, the vagus nerve, the foundational system where health is built from and health must be restored from, because that system controls all other systems. We will be talking about doing this one thing first and foundationally. But don't hear what I'm not saying, please, moms and dads and other providers. When you do this one thing first, foundationally and fully, we'll talk about the difference between real neurologically focused chiropractic and not. When you do it first, foundationally and fully, it doesn't mean that it's the only thing that we need to do to get our kiddos better with chronic disease. It means when you get the nervous system back online and you get this one thing done first, fully, foundationally, everything else on the list that you spent so much time, so much excitement, and often so much financial investment as well to see take root finally will. Because there's a sequence to healing, so there's a sequence to restoration. There's a sequence to the different care options and treatments and therapies and programs. And I only know that because when I built that clinic, the first couple of years, the only training I had was the one thing that I do: neurologically focused adjustments. That no other providers do that. And so for 2 to 3 years, while I was getting all this advanced training and certification and taking the same path that a lot of parents do to learn more, do more, I only did one thing. And it worked incredibly. We were getting 19-year-olds, 21-year-olds with Asperger's and anxiety and seizures. We were getting them vividly, markedly better after families had spent 2 decades working traditional medicine and natural biomedical to get them better. And the adjustments just were life-changing. They were miraculous, honestly, is the words that parents would say, with how much those kids' lives were changed when everything else didn't quite get it done. And then I went into all those trainings, went into all those certifications, brought it all into my practice. And it may look, and it did, it's a great marketable thing to tell parents who are looking for this stuff, all the things to get their child better. Hey, you can get it all here under one roof. When I brought it all there under one roof, our results went to crap. That is the Iowa farmer way of saying more was not better, less, but more specifically, the right sequence is way better. And that's what we're going to continue to hammer on with this episode right here. So again, a couple more things to teach you on this. Please share the heck out of this podcast episode. I want to go through a couple of more granular scientific things to really prove this point to you. But right in the middle of this, I've already asked once. Let me ask one more time here before we even get to the end. Will you please share this episode more than any other episode? I think this is the one parents of today need, because you're not only exhausted, other parents are not only exhausted watching their kiddos struggle with health, they're exhausted because they feel like they're doing 170 things and they're all supposed to be good and they're all supposed to be working, and they might be competing against each other, canceling each other out. And being one of the reasons that they're not working is your child's already overwhelmed, overstressed, and dysregulated within their nervous system. So that old adage of too much of a good thing, it rings true here too. And what we see is kiddos today with chronic illness are so neurologically depleted, so neurologically exhausted, that they can't even take good things in and do good things with them. That's the conversation of today. Okay, so we've mentioned it many times already through that fairly thorough introduction. You're thinking right now, wait a minute, did we just get the introduction? I think I totally get the main talking point here. You do. I hit it 5 times over intentionally just in the introduction so you can see the thing that we are talking about. But let me give you a little bit, or maybe a lot of bit more science to say, is that really true? Is the nervous system in and of itself that important? And is this sequence, this hierarchy, that batting order, that essential to get results? Give me another 20 minutes to give you some deep details on this, and I promise you, you will see it more clearly than ever before. So number one, in order to understand how healing really works, we've got to go back and we've got to look at the sequence or the hierarchy and batting order of how it would have gone if it had gone optimally. So to study how to get sick kids healthy, we need to study health. This is why medical doctors are so not good at chronic disease, because they have no clue about health. They didn't study it. I actually think it's totally unfair to expect medical doctors to be sickness, disease, and emergency medicine experts and health restoration experts. They just don't get it. They didn't study it. Yes, they have a poster. Has anybody looked at it? If you think about what a well baby check is, can we just, it's like calling healthcare. Can we not call it healthcare? Can we call it sick care? It's like calling health insurance. Do you get to use it to be healthy? No, it's sickness and insurance. And again, thank goodness we have it in crisis and emergency intervention, because goodness gracious is our, inadequate, dangerous, deadly medical, sick care medical system quite expensive as well for as porous of results it gets. But long story, going sideways, but not. It's not healthcare, it's sick care. It's not health insurance, it's sickness insurance. And the pediatrician does not understand neurodevelopment just by weighing height and weight and doing a few basic tests and then looking at the milestones poster and going, oh, they made it or they didn't. Now, the truth is, they're so bad, the CDC, the AAP, and the traditional pediatrician about understanding neurodevelopment. Actually, last year, they took crawling off the motor milestones chart because it's getting worse. Kids are developing off track, more dysregulated than ever before. COVID made it a million times worse because they shut everything down and made it more stressful, more fear. They took the perfect storm and made it worse. And so kids are worse. This is not a fun conversation, but it's a real conversation. So did the medical system, did they step up and say, hey, we've got a real problem here. Here's the signs earlier of autism and chronic disease developing. Let's spot them. Then let's get to the root cause with things like neurologically-focused chiropractic and movement-based care and address the gut and everything else. Let's stop giving so many antibiotics and so many toxins and injecting them into an already, dysregulated system. Did they say that conversation, or did they say, let's just slide it under the rug? Let's just punt it a little bit further. We've already been telling them, don't worry, they'll grow out of it. And I actually don't even know you'd have to be so trained out of reality to not see what's happening with these kids, that the more they have a stressful pregnancy, the more they have fertility in the case history, the more they have forceps, vacuum, emergency, C-section, induction, birth intervention, and the more they have colic and constipation and eczema and chronic ear infections and RSV and croup and antibiotics and toxins put into their life, and the more of those things that are there early, that's called the perfect storm. I'm hitting this one step earlier than I planned to in my outline here, but the more that happens, the more kids get diagnosed with chronic illness like autism, allergies, ADHD, epilepsy later on down. We see it. I didn't find the perfect storm pathway from textbooks and trainings and certifications. I didn't find it in school. I found it in practice. I found it by caring enough to listen to moms and dads, sitting knee to knee, going back all the way and asking questions. First off, doctors don't do that at all. Second, we went deeper earlier than anybody else, and that's where we found it. Well, if we study neurodevelopment in the way that it is actually done, and we get granular, we don't just get poster surface level like in the pediatrician office, but we truly understand it, the nervous system develops first. God's design is brilliant. I'm going to teach it to you as best I know it. Okay, I can go way deeper than if I was teaching this to a bunch of other, nerdy pediatric. We have an 80-hour certification program and seminar. We go even way more granular than this, but we don't need to go granular beyond what we're about to get you to understand this in a very usable, implementable, help my child way. The truth is the nervous system develops first. Even the moment that conception happens, the brain, what's called the neural tube, those things develop first. It is incredible to look at God's design from a neuroanatomical health concept and say, wow, that is brilliant, that is specific, that is sequential. Okay, and that's the message of today. It is wildly brilliant. It is wildly intricate. It is wildly sequential. And once you look at it enough, you can actually simplify it. The nervous system develops first, then primary functions. Obviously, heart beating, lungs, breathing. Then from there, after the primary functions, I still consider these, we in chiropractic consider these still to be primary functions, digestion, respiration, immune function. Those are now developing on the inside, if you will, right? If you think about anatomy, digestion, the gut, the microbiome, those are the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, all the different kind of parts, pieces and parts, systems of the digestive system. That's on the inside. The immune system, the lungs, the respiratory, the endocrine system, that's on the inside. And then you have things on the outside, the motor system. Gross motor development is supposed to go first, so the big skeletal muscles, and then you go to fine motor development after that, and you learn those fine motor skills. And when everything is going hunky-dory, there's an Iowa term for you, then you can see this turn on for your baby, for your toddler, for your child in a very specific sequence. Now, let me sneak this in there. What matters most by far is the sequence. What matters least compared to the sequence is the calendar and when, W-H-E-N, they go through this development. The sequence and the order is essential. Some kids are born early, so they're neurodevelopmental according to the chart and the calendar, it's going to be different. Some kids are huge. Some kids were 10-pounders, and it's harder to learn how to walk when you're a gigantic brute bowling ball. Now, you think I'm having fun with this? Like, is this just Tony's way of making a joke in the middle of this? No, it's true. Bigger kiddos develop a little bit slower because that big old head they got to walk around with is a little bit harder to figure out for the big muscles to get all toned and coordinated and go out there. It's just real, okay? When you're in practice, you get done. There's no posters on our freaking wall that show, your kid's supposed to be doing this by 8 months. The supposed to, should have, it's detrimental to our kids' health. It's not helpful. Understanding that the sequence is more important than the calendar and the timing of this is essential. Nervous system first, then digestion, then immune system, then motor system. But if we separate those, now I want to pull this hair out. I want to split these hairs here. If we say, which one's most important? The nervous system gets that answer first. Which one's next important? The motor system. Movement motor development is essential to brain and nervous system development. So we're almost kind of answering with the same thing in two different ways. Now, what you were probably told, what you were taught, and it's so freaking close to the right answer. It's that the gut and the microbiome and the gut-brain connection, and if we have gut dysbiosis and the microbiome is disrupted and there's leaky gut, then toxins can get into the bloodstream and those toxins create inflammation. That inflammation can go systemic and that inflammation can go to the brain. It can trigger things, behaviors, and that's why red dye number 40 gets in, and that's why gluten gets in, and that's why these things get in and they're not supposed to get in, and the brain and the nervous system doesn't like them, and they're offending and they're inflammatory and they create these issues, and that is dead on accurate. But we're not done. We didn't get to the roots if we go, why is the gut of our kids today so susceptible? Why is dairy such a bigger deal than it used to be? Why are kids so much more sensitive to gluten? Why are kids so much more sensitive? Why is there so many more food intolerances and food allergies and environmental allergies than ever before? Have we really, in just this last generation or two, when autism and chronic illness has exploded, have we really changed our lifestyle that much in the last 20, 30, 40 years? No. Dairy, industrial revolution, big ag, all of these chemicals have been in our environment for 3 to 4 generations when you actually really study this stuff and open up the hood. What is different? And you got to hear this part too. This is one of those take-homes from this episode. What is different is our kids of this generation have more stressed, more off-track nervous systems than ever before. The perfect storm of stress during fertility, pregnancy, labor, and delivery is hitting earlier, more often, and worse than ever before. And it throws their neurodevelopment off track. And if you start with an off-track nervous system, your digestive system, which is already immature and needs to get stronger through natural optimal development, it's really off track when the nervous system is off track. The immune system being so sensitive to these foods and these intolerances and so easily triggered into inflammation, that's because the nervous system is first sympathetic dominant and off track. So the nervous system is the first thing to develop optimally, and it's the first thing that the perfect storm shuts down, stresses out, and dysregulates. So in order to get you can probably already see when we get into the root cause, we get into the solutions. And if you can't get your child's gut back online, even with perfect diet, detoxes, and supplements, it's likely neurogenic in nature, meaning their nervous system got off track first, and until that gets back on track, the gut won't, the immune system won't, the endocrine system won't, and their motor planning system won't as well. And then that goes on, development after. So you have the main foundation, nervous system. Then you got the middle guys, you got the gut, you got respiration, you got the immune system, and then I'm simplifying this, and then the third stage of neurodevelopment is the brain-based stuff. That is speech, communication, socialization, emotional regulation, behavioral regulation, and cognition. So is autism a challenge with all of those brain-based things? Certainly is. Is ADHD a challenge with all those brain-based things? Anxiety, is epilepsy a brain-based nervous system problem up there? It sure is. But I have taken in very few, if any, autism, ADHD, anxiety, epilepsy, and the list goes on, pandas, POTS, you name it, kiddos who don't have absolutely dysfunctional digestive systems, absolutely suppressed off-track immune systems, absolutely off-track gross fine motor and sensory processing systems. So the mistake being made, even by some incredible, natural, integrative, functional neurology experts in the world, is we're trying to get the brain better first, when the brain, in terms of optimal development and design, the brain needs the body, to simply put it, as simple as I can, to be healthy first. If we don't have good sleep, good digestion, strong immune system, balanced endocrine system, and motor, most importantly, if motor tone and coordination, and this goes beyond PT, this goes beyond OT, this goes beyond speech, we're actually talking about the central and autonomic nervous system control of motor tone and coordination. If those don't get online and get better first, then the brain's not going to get better. It's not going to heal from autism, the socialization and emotional and communication. It's not going to heal from epilepsy. It's not going to calm and regulate and make better decisions with ADHD. It's not going to have the amygdala chill out and the prefrontal cortex be better with anxiety. So the brain works for the body, and the nervous system develops in a specific sequence where the brain and the nervous system goes, let me get these basic functions online first, and then I'll get to the big advanced jobs of socialization, cognition, communication, and so forth. So you can go more granular than putting it into these 3-4 steps. And when you really study, as a pediatric neuro specialist really does, and OTs do, and everybody else, you can branch this out into a much longer list than these 3 to 4 things. I very intentionally aggregate and accumulate them together because we don't need to complicate something that for so many families, and honestly, even for so many parents, not just parents, but providers, it's already complicated. It's already convoluted and overwhelming. So I'm keeping it simple to these 3 to 4 steps, okay? Just one more quote from one of my favorite researchers and geniuses out in the world. Dr. Bruce Lipton is really the pioneer and the father, if you will, of epigenetics, which is, there's a whole podcast episode coming on that, and how we're absolutely positively not a victim to our genetics, but the environment is much more influential than traditional medical knows. But Dr. Lipton, who's a huge chiropractic fan because he understands the importance of the nervous system first and foundationally, and he understands that the right kind of chiropractic taps into and helps heal and restore and regulate the nervous system more than anything else. But he says it this way. It's right in this slide, this statement's right in the middle of every Perfect Storm workshop I've ever done. I've done 500 of them all over the world, from Scotland to Rome to Fiji to, all over here in the States. It says the function of the nervous system is to perceive the environment and coordinate the behavior of all other cells. So let's break that down. The function of the nervous system is to first perceive, input, sensory. Your child's primary neurological issues that are coming out as abnormal behavior, unwanted behavior, stimming, anxiety, seizures. The output, the expression, or the behavior would be the word in this sentence, is dependent first upon the perception and the coordination. And the nervous system's job is to perceive and coordinate. And so we can't get better behavior. And also at the end of that sentence, all other cells. Did you hear that part? We can't get all other cells better if we don't get nervous system function and coordination better. What if we put cells together? What is that called? The gut and the microbiome. What if we put a specific set of cells together? What is that called? The immune system, the endocrine system, the motor system, gross and fine motor. And so what has probably been happening for your child's healing plan is you have individual providers working on individual systems, and they're all tying that individual dysfunctional system to the totality of the diagnosis and your child's brain-based neurological challenges. And you can map that out. They're each accurate and they're spot on, but they're individual instead of all together. The nervous system. And when you work on the central and autonomic nervous system, what can you expect to get better? ALL, all other cells. Now, before we move on from Dr. Lipton's quote, the function of the nervous system is to perceive the environment and coordinate the behavior of all other cells. There's two sides to the coin in that description, in that sentence. Environment is essential. And lean in on this one, parents. What if you've already done everything under the sun to make the environment better for your child? You've removed every toxin from the laundry detergent and the dishwasher and their clothes and their mattress, and you've shut down EMF, and you've done everything, literally everything, to calm and clean up the environment. But your child's nervous system, perception, coordination, behavior, and function is still dysregulated. Well, that's where we got to swim all the way to the front of that sentence. And you need a doctor who can help restore, rebuild, and repair the function of the nervous system foundationally. That's pediatric chiropractic. That's why when we start adjusting kiddos, here's the sequence of healing that we experience. And when I say kiddos, those 19-year-olds, those 21-year-olds, those 23-year-olds that I got my start with, those were the only families that would give pediatric chiropractic a shot 15 years ago. It's now on fire, but that's because we've been working hard to get the word out, and most importantly, we've been getting results for a long time. And parents, moms, you're the loudest voice. You're the ones who are going to change the world, because when your baby gets better, and even your baby's 23 years old, but they're struggling so much that they're still there with you, struggling in life, and they get better, you get louder. And so thank you for constantly sharing this message, because it gives me the opportunity to even turn this podcast on to build the PX Docs platform, and now confidently, obsessively, relentlessly take this message to the world. But when we start adjusting at taking care of the nervous system, so use those terms synonymous, adjustments done this way are neurologically focused. That's what we do. We seek to not heal the spine and the skeleton and the muscles. We're tapping into the nervous system. And when we do, even for our 21-year-olds with epilepsy and Asperger's, guess what gets better first? Their sleep, their poop, their digestion, their immune system, their motor planning, their posture, their neurotone coordination within how they move. And guess what we focus on? Obsessively, relentlessly, and only for the first 90 to 100 days. Those basics. We call them the neurological soft signs, or the neurological foundational signs of healing. And when we take in a kiddo with autism, no matter their age, or epilepsy, or any brain-based problem, we'll call it for this contrast of the conversation, we don't worry about the brain first. We get their body better first. We get those foundational developmental systems online in a specific sequence. And we're getting towards the end of this, but you're probably already picking up what I'm putting down. If you're going to say a functional neurologist or someone who is a brain-based expert, and they're trying to work on retained primitive reflexes, if they're doing revisions of tongue ties, if they're doing cranial sacral, if they're shining lasers and such at your child's skull and trying to activate certain parts of the brain, those are all good things. But if they're done first, they will be hitting your head against a brick wall in terms of a healing mechanism. It is going backwards, not forward. Retained primitive reflexes are only there because when the nervous system is stressed and subluxated, or dysregulated as we call it, it's sympathetic dominant and the vagus nerve parasympathetic system is offline and suppressed. So the retained primitive reflexes are secondary to sympathetic dominance. They're not going to go away no matter how much you paintbrush them and work at them, until the nervous system stress goes away first. And in fact, I got to say this on this episode towards kind of the fourth quarter here. If you work on these secondary, tertiary, quaternary things within retained primitive reflexes and brain-based therapies, neurofeedback, biofeedback, lasers, how do I know? Because I did it. You can actually make things worse. When I started to add more integrative therapies to my practice, what I said earlier was true, and it feels better for me to say that our results just stopped getting as I'll call it good as they were with chiropractic alone. What actually happened, it's hard for me to say because I wish I'd have known better prior to this. I wish somebody had given me this podcast episode as a provider so I could have helped more kids in a better, cleaner, more sequential way with better results. We actually started to see a lot of kids, different sensory issues, behavior issues, and sleep challenges that maybe had gotten better with the adjustments start to get worse the more we added these integrative therapies, the more we would push a detox too soon, the more we would work on primitive reflexes or cranial work and brain-based stuff too soon. So parents, you might have observed that too. And if you did, I know how disheartening and frustrating and what the heck is going on is happening feeling that gives you. This episode is giving you the answers as to how to change that going forward and not only get optimal results, but not have these side effects of different functional integrative therapies that are all wonderful things that will do incredible things if done in the right order. But if they're done in the wrong order, the best case scenario is nothing happens. The not good scenario is sometimes it can actually cause a kiddo to backtrack and become even more dysregulated. And that is not a fun conversation for me to have. That is not a conversation that wins me, the prize parking spot at the biomedical functional neurology conferences that I went to for so many years. But I'm not here for other providers and researchers and academics to say, oh yeah, that's awesome. That looks cool. That's so, because that stuff looks cool, doesn't it? On Instagram and on a website. And it's very intricate and it's very advanced and it's very brain-based. And you know that your child's autism and epilepsy and these ADHD and pandas is stuck in their brain. So you're like, let's go there. Let's do that. Because it looks great. And it is great if done in the right timing and the right sequence. But it won't be great and it won't be effective, and it can sometimes be funky if done in the wrong order and if the foundational healing of the central and autonomic nervous system isn't put first. All right, parents, we'll start to close this one down. I already went deep into the motor system. I just want to teach you one more thing about how the motor system and the digestive system are actually really one thing. When you study anatomy, which obviously all of us nerd docs have done at length, and you look at it, the motor system or the digestive system, the stomach, let me go in order, the esophagus, I'm not going to name them all, but the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, those are actually called smooth muscles. Anatomically, and parents, you may not know this, the digestive tract is a muscle. When you actually were to stretch it all out, it's the longest, biggest muscle in the body. And it's all connected. Again, we call it different things. Oh, that's the esophagus, that's the stomach, that's the small intestine, that's the large intestine, that's the colon. We call it different things because different regions of it have different functions. But if you simplify it, which is what I will always do for you on this podcast, it's really just one big, long muscle tract. It's a motor system dependent upon motility more than chemistry. And that's the last thing I want to teach you. When you look at gut health, you're absolutely dead on, spot on when you say the gut and the brain are connected. Through the bloodstream, through the vagus nerve, through the enteric nervous system, the digestive tract has more sensory nerve endings, remember perception and coordination, than perhaps any other system and does other than the big muscles and the fine muscles. And if you again see where I'm going with this, put it all together. The digestive system is a muscle. Our skeletal muscles on the outside are called skeletal muscles. The digestive system on the inside are called smooth muscles. But when you actually understand how God made us, they're all muscles, which means their tone, their coordination, their motility, their activation or inhibition is all dependent upon nervous system function first. So when we look at the gut, and I'll do a whole episode just diving deep into the gut and say, hey, and I've done a couple, but we're going to do more. And if you say, is the gut more dependent upon motility, so movement, or chemistry, and sensitive to certain foods and things that are going to trigger and disrupt it, and then certain foods need to get in there and heal it, which of them is more important? Well, the best answer is both, okay? I am being forced to split the hairs here because this is a conversation no one else is having. But the truth is, they're both essential to getting full gut healing and getting your kiddo better. But the reason that so many families have switched to a perfect diet, done the detoxes, done the parasite cleanses, added all the supplements to heal and restore the gut, and it won't heal and it won't fully restore, and their child is still constipated and still bloated and still has heavy metals and still has certain food aversions, is because the nervous system's motility is likely compromised first. What subluxation and nervous system dysregulation does, it's called dysautonomia is another term for all this we've been talking about. The first place that an overstressed nervous system from the perfect storm and subluxation and sympathetic dominance, the first place it's going to steal energy from is the muscles of the gut. Because when a child's in a fight or flight response, which is the natural primal response to the perfect storm, fertility, stressful pregnancy, labor, and birth trauma to the brainstem, it shifts the entire nervous system into sympathetic dominance. And because its primally protective state is fight or flight, it steals energy from digestion because it's worried about the fight or the flight. So our design actually begins to, in this case with the perfect storm, the good can start to become bad. The fight or flight sympathetic system is really good to be turned on and then turned right off. And a child stuck in autism, ADHD, anxiety, and epilepsy, they're stuck in sympathetic dominance 24/7, 365. So the first system that is most compromised is the digestive tract. And the motility, the absorption, so getting good foods in, the assimilation, sending those good macronutrients to where they need to go, and then the elimination, detoxification is kind of the today's word for that. Those are all compromised when the nervous system is stressed and sympathetic dominant. So you cannot get the gut all the way back online. You cannot heal the microbiome and the gut-brain connection without getting the nervous system better first. And so if you've done everything, diet changes, detoxes, supplements, you name it, to heal your child's gut, and you're not there yet, when you add in neurologically focused chiropractic, you will see their motility, their absorption, their assimilation, and their elimination get better. The first responses, I mentioned them earlier, when kids get adjusted, they sleep better, they poop better, they eat better, they get through colds and congestion and immune challenges better, and then they move better, because the movement system is the digestive system. And because the central and autonomic nervous system affect that one the most, that's how you get it back online. You get the nervous system back online first. So to summarize this whole conversation, nervous system stress, dysregulation, subluxation, dysfunction, dysautonomia. There's kind of 5 to 6 words we use on our website all the time, pxdocs.com, pxdocs.com, if you want to read articles all about this stuff. Those things all mean the same thing. The nervous system's off track and stressed out. When you have nervous system dysregulation, you have gut dysfunction. When you have nervous system dysfunction, you have immune system dysfunction. And when you have nervous system dysfunction, you have speech, communication, behavioral, emotional dysregulation, and perhaps cognition, focus, and concentration challenges as well. The nervous system is the boss. To get all these other systems better, we must get the nervous system better first. The foundation and the sequence matters most, okay? So we went into all of this again and again and again, and here's the take-home action steps. It may feel like from this podcast episode forward that you got to go backwards to go forwards, and I'll leave it with you like this. The truth is, once you do this one thing, get the nervous system better for your child with neurologically focused chiropractic, it's going to open the door to all those other things working better. I can't say it more simply or more awesomely or more excitedly than that. When you tap into the nervous system, you get the sympathetic system to chill out and not be on overdrive. You get the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic healing, restoration, and regulation and socialization and behavioral and emotional regulation side of the nervous system. We now know the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic isn't just rest and digest, but it controls inflammation, it controls socialization, it controls communication. You get the parasympathetic and vagus nerve back online, everything gets better. This right here in closing is the number one frustration that I know that a lot of skeptical parents and skeptical providers, and especially the medical system, this is the number one problem people have with chiropractic. How can one thing help all these things? It's too good to be true. That's too much. That's overkill. You're over the top. You're wearing a shirt that says expect miracles or hope dealer or amen. Yeah. Because that's how God designed us. The nervous system does everything. The function of the nervous system is to perceive the environment and coordinate the behavior of all other cells. Cells are systems. So when you get the nervous system better, you get the gut better. When you get the nervous system better, you get the motor system better. When you get the nervous system better, you get sensory, emotional, behavioral regulation better. The list goes on. And that is why our results with chronic health are so poor in today's system. Because no doctor takes care of the system. Everybody has become siloed. Everybody has become splintered. And it kind of exists in the non-conventional system as well. This doctor over here is a gut microbiome expert. This person over here is a movement, primitive reflexes, kind of motor system expert. This person over here is a cognition, behavioral theory and therapy expert. Awesome, awesome, awesome. But all individual. All siloed, all splintered, even if it's traditional medical or natural medical. The truth is you need a doctor of all systems. To get a doctor who can help your child heal with the multitude of things. And by the way, chiropractic doesn't do the healing. This is not a treatment. This is not a cure. This is a care program that addresses nervous system dysfunction, that addresses the true root multi-system cause of all these challenges of chronic health in kids. And so all we do in the most awesome way, you want to talk about simplifying something, here it is. The adjustments are designed to restore function to the nervous system, and then the body gets better on its own. The way God designed us, there's an intelligence within the brain and nervous system. That's where it resides. That's where organization and coordination happens. And so when you get the nervous system back online, it's the best healer. It's the best doctor. It's the best detoxer. It's the best rebuilder. It's the best, we'll even come back to my Hobby Lobby joke from before, it's the best finisher. So the nervous system's smart. It's going to get your child better. When you get the nervous system back online through chiropractic, we watch this every day in my clinic. This is the sequence of healing. They sleep better. They digest better and poop better. They don't get so inflamed and sick and congested so easily. And then most importantly, if I were to split the hairs, they move better. Their motor tone, their coordination, their big muscles, their fine muscles, their efficiency, their organization, their coordination, and their sensory processing and their neurological processing improves over time with chiropractic care plans done in this way. And when you get those foundational 4 or 5 things better, sleeping, pooping, eating, immune system, respiration, and then motor planning, when you get those neurological foundations of the body better by getting the functional nervous system better, guess what gets better next? The brain, the behavior, the emotions, the focus, the transitions, the regulation, often even seizures, and so forth in that way. We do not treat. We do not cure. We don't look at ADHD or autism or anxiety or epilepsy differently. There may be different neurological dysfunction patterns we pick up on our scans and our evaluation, but we take care of each child individually, personalized, customized to their needs, to their storm, to their nervous system. And when you get that system better, you can expect over time, it doesn't happen overnight, you can expect other systems to get online, and you can actually expect them to generally happen, most commonly happen by far, in a specific sequence. So when healing from these big brain-based things that your child's been struggling with, their lack of communication, their seizures, their big emotions, all these brain-based things, it makes sense to want to throw neurofeedback and lasers and brain-based therapies at it because you want that stuff gone yesterday. When real root cause neurological healing happens, it happens over time and it happens sequentially. And the coolest thing is we can start to become, we use what we call predictive neurophysiology. When we start to see sleep better, digestion better, motor planning better, we know we're on track. We know that that brain is going to get better next because you can see the signs of real sequential neurological healing happening. Parents, this is the episode. I know I went deep. I went for an hour or so on this one because it's a conversation that I intentionally wanted to have 5 times differently, but the same within this. And it's a conversation I pray, I ask, I beg you, send this to 5, 50, 500 other moms. Post this in the 5 Facebook groups you're in. Post this on your Instagram stories. Text this. I know you've got at least 5 different mom group texts, okay? I know you've got the soccer moms. I know you got hockey moms. I know you got the grade school mom. Maybe you're the room mom, and you got to text these moms to get the crap together for the, Halloween parties and everything else, right? Like, hey, we're going chemical free this year, moms. Nobody bring in stickers. You're fired. And you got all these group texts, okay? I'm finishing this with jokes because it was a very serious conversation, and I promised everybody on this podcast we're going to get sciencey, nerdy, emotional, and we're going to just have a few jokes, okay? And so I know you have mom texts, and I know maybe 1 or 2 of them are ruined by somebody with an Android, and the green boxes and all the, subluxation and dysregulation that an Android causes group texts. Will you please send this one far and wide? More than any other, I probably say that every stinking week because these are such important conversations for our kiddos. Y'all, I lived this. I did this clinically. I watched incredible. You want to know why I've been so loud about this work for so long? Not just because I know the science and I know the sequence, because I know it's true. Every single day in practice for 16 years running, parents report to me these things are improving and healing and getting better for our child. And it almost leaves me in disbelief. And I can answer it scientifically better than anybody else on earth. And yet there's a level of disbelief and awe and indescribable things that I get to feel and experience doing this work for kids. I got to feel it and experience it for my own son, Oliver, who was supposed to not live till age 1. His brain damage was so bad. And then if he did, it was autism and cerebral palsy and epilepsy was a 99%. They really just said that because it would have sounded rude to say 100%. Medically, that was his prediction. Neurologically focused chiropractically, different outcome. He's 15, no seizures, no delays, no challenges, optimal health, got a girlfriend, winning cross-country races, living his best life right now. Healing is more than possible for your child. The master key to healing, when you feel like you've already done everything and nothing has been working, is to go back to the foundation and focus on the nervous system first, and then have us as neurologically focused chiropractors help you line up the ducks after that. That's what I'll leave you with. We are not only experts in neurological function and restoration, but we do understand how essential all these other healing endeavors are. And if you've done them all and they've all jammed up and crammed up and not got results, what will very likely change in the future when you add chiropractic in first and foundationally is now we can start to pull these things back off the shelf and say, hey, your child's nervous system is better regulated, better balanced, better receptive. Let's go back into PT and accentuate and improve this. Let's go back to the functional integrative doc. You know how you couldn't get those toxins out and they wouldn't respond to the detox, or it was too bumpy, the detox was too detrimental, too many side effects to it, they couldn't handle it? Maybe now they can. Let's go back and do that work, and it will work 10 times better when you've done the foundational work on the nervous system first. I could keep going on about this conversation for another hour, but I really, really, really love you guys for tuning in. Absolutely love having this conversation, getting it out to the world. I very much look forward to the next episode and every interview that we have. We have some incredible ones coming up. And if you just found this podcast right now, will you please not only share it in the Facebook groups and on your Instagram stories and in the group chats, but will you please go to wherever you're listening here on Apple or Spotify, will you give me 2 minutes and leave a review? Write the words that are natural and authentic to you as to how this podcast maybe impacted you, your family, your child, and share that. Because if we share this podcast with the world, we can get them the answers about the perfect storm, about how healing happens in a specific sequence, and about how absolutely transformational, neurologically focused pediatric chiropractic can be for your family. Always here to bring you hope, answers, and drug-free health. Sneak in a few dad jokes and farmer stories at the same time. We'll see you on the next one. God bless. Be well.